I know what you're thinking today. You're like, you're late. What happened? I'll tell you in a minute. But I want you to know we have Devin Durrant on the show today, and we're going to blow your mind. Today, we're going to be talking about the Values Delta, which is his book. And I promise you, I'll be back in just a second. Okay, welcome. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. And we were late today, but it was my bad. When I pushed the button, I forgot to put the, locations in for the show. And so we've been talking for about 7 minutes before our EP came on and said, "Oh, by the way, you're not live. So let's start all over." And so I want to welcome Devin back to the Coffee Break Show right now. Thank you for being here. I see you guys now on board. Now we see that we are live. I don't even know. I have my 1 cup of coffee. I've just not drank enough of it today. And so we're going to be drinking that throughout the show today. Devin Durrant, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. This is a bonus for me. I get to spend a little extra time with you, and I just want to congratulate you on this wonderful podcast that you've put together and all your successes. I look forward to talking with you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. I have been doing I probably have about, some 600 shows under my belt, and I've never had an NBA player on my show. So I'm kind of geeking out a little bit because I love basketball. I love it. I love March Madness. I love all those things about basketball. And today we're going to be talking about, and thank you. My EP is saying, okay, good morning and welcome, Devin. Thank you for being here. But one of the things that I never get to talk about is the NBA because I haven't had anybody play there, but I love basketball. I played, stopped when I got to college. But I enjoyed listening to you tell me that you were a retired NBA player. But not only that, you're also a leadership expert and you've been really successful. You're a real estate entrepreneur as well. And those are a lot of successes in your career. And I want to start with the NBA, like we're going to start all over, like how you started in basketball. Because, they always tell you like Michael Jordan started playing when he was in elementary school and he just practiced and played. And, what's your story? How did you get to the start there?
Well, one of the benefits I had growing up was I had an older brother, and he always kept me in line and would pound on me occasionally, and he introduced me to basketball. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I went out as a fourth grader to play a little asphalt basketball, and 11 boys showed up that day, and we picked up sides. And I wasn't much of a basketball player back then. And you can guess the end of the story is if with 11 guys playing 5-on-5, one person will be sitting out. And that one person was me that day. But I had some good friends, and after I teared up a little bit, they included me, and we played 6-on-5 that day. But I remember that feeling of rejection and failure, and I thought, I like this sport. I want to be better, and so that fueled my desire to improve and to practice, and eventually got to play some basketball in junior high and high school, and competed at Brigham Young University, and eventually was able to play a little bit in the NBA, and had some wonderful memories and experiences from my brief time playing in the league.
I think sometimes that when we, set a dream, I don't even care. It's like, there's those musicians who are one hit wonders, right? So they get that one hit wonder and they're like, yes, I remember having a hit song. Okay, so I only had one, but I did have a hit song and I got that there. You know what I mean? That to me is like, that's fun and miraculous. And when you get to play in the NBA, even it's like, if you're in your 15 minutes of fame right now, people enjoy it, love it. And the whole thing about um, being rejected in that basketball game when you were, when you played 6-on-5 that day, and they were just somebody include him. We'll play basketball, and that being included in that, there's something about the thing that you said. You said, I knew I wanted to be better. And that was the impetus for you to start, yeah, I don't know, practicing or doing what you did to get better at basketball, to understand the game better, or to maybe do drills better. And I want to know something. You know how they say, leadership, are you born with leadership or you develop leadership? And you were such a young age, being in fourth grade, to decide, yeah, I want to be good at this. And your own leadership carried you forward. Were you born with it? Did you develop it? How did that leadership skill get to you? I'm going to be so nitpicky because I think you started off young having some sort of chutzpah.
Well, I think the answer to your question is you are born with it, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's something that a lot of the talents that are innate still take time and effort and work to develop those kind of things that are just part of us, and that's one of the gifts that I felt I was given as a young boy, is the opportunity to compete in sports, in baseball,
Yeah.
football, basketball, and to struggle and strive to be better, but to also be the beneficiary of great leaders and
Mm.
coaches and teachers and wonderful models who had character traits that I wanted to embrace. I wanted them to be part of who I was and who I am. And so that's been a real plus for me over the years, is to be in the shadow of great talent, great leaders, great teachers, as I mentioned.
Gosh, I think that's some of the most important things that people are fortunate with. It just takes one good teacher, one good coach to help you get to that next level, that next mental place where you're starting to say to yourself, I want to be this, I want to be like that. And you're starting to choose your values at a young age. And I'm having an epiphany as you said that, Devin, because I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I did too. But you don't realize you're picking them at that age. You don't realize you're just like, when I grow up, I want to be like them, and that's kind of that's an interesting point that you just made there. So you're in the NBA, you have a moment where you're also playing in Europe. And I want that story to be told. I mean, because I think a lot of people, when they become discouraged, they don't take another step, or they don't know how to lead themselves out of that. And tell me what you did. Tell me your story about that back end piece. So you're in the NBA and you're playing, and then what happened?
I'm guessing I had a common experience, which is I had a lot of success. Things were going well for me throughout college, and now I'm playing in the NBA, and I'm guarding Larry Bird, and I'm playing against Julius Erving and
Wow.
Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, and the list goes on. These incredible players, and that was my rookie year playing for the Indiana Pacers. But my second year, the Indiana Pacers, they waived me in training camp. Then I went to the Phoenix Suns and played with them for a few games, and then they also invited me to seek a new profession. And so now I was being rejected. I was in
Mm,
the middle of failure, and it's one of those times where you have to look deep within yourself and say, okay,
yeah.
what's next? Is it time for me to move on? Unfortunately, I had the opportunity to play a little bit of basketball in Spain and France, and extend my basketball career a little bit. But ultimately, it became time to move on, to get past what some would see as failure, being cut from the NBA. And it was a chance. That I was thinking was, here I'm in the midst of this dark cloud, meaning I'm done as a professional basketball player. but where's the silver lining? What's next? What opportunities are ahead, and how am I going to approach those? And what have I learned through my basketball playing days that could help me achieve success in my next step?
Yes. Yes. I love that you just said that because sometimes, and I love this reframe. Thank you, Robin. Whoa, what an amazing reframe. Seek a new profession. And I want to tell you, this is the thing where a lot of people stop and they falter. They get to the point where they're not looking for those new opportunities, or they're not looking. How did you sustain yourself through, I played here and I got to play in France and all the places that you played basketball in. First off, congratulations for choosing to stretch your career out. And so when this happened to you and you decided, well, it's time to move, or time to do something different, and you do, how did you look for the new opportunity? I mean, what did you do? I mean, everybody's like, okay, well, he was an NBA player, so aren't you supposed to do commercials now or something? You know what I mean? Sell shoes at Nike or something. I mean, what happens when those choices are different from what you expected? And I love that you said, I had a lot of success and everything was going my way. And I just never thought that it would cease to go according to my plan. Isn't that interesting? And what did you do? How did you seek opportunities?
Yeah, thank you. Excellent question. I, uh, I'm blessed with the fact that I'm married to an amazing woman, and so in those situations, you're not on your own. You have your eternal companion, and so Julie and I, we just put our heads together and kind of figure out, okay, what's our next step? And we had met some gentlemen from a software company in my hometown, and we had that connection, and one thing led to another, and I was working for WordPerfect Corporation, a wonderful software company,
Yeah.
uh, and
That was back in the day. Word
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. So learned a lot about computers, a lot about software,
Yeah.
and made some dear friends there. And boy, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me was having to move on and develop a new skill set, and uh, again, make new friends, friends that have been near and dear ever since that time back in the 80s,
Mhm.
and move on, find a new job and a new profession, and develop some new skills.
So you're now looking at that career, and then how did you move from there to real estate investor?
I think we talked about the things that we're born with, some of those things that are just innate. And
Mhm.
one of those things for me was the entrepreneurial spirit. I love that feeling of being independent and working to develop some success, but also taking full responsibility for the failures along the way. And so I spent four years working in corporate America, but always with the desire to go out and do something on my own. And that was in 1993 when I was approached by a dear friend, and we started a real estate investment company back then. And we were together for 4 years, and I eventually bought him out. He was willing to go along with that plan, and I've been flying solo since for about the last 25 years.
Wow, wow. So here's what I want to say. I want to ask you, just clearly as I can, what are the three things you think in your leadership skills helped you, like, quantum leap from, college to the NBA, from the NBA to Word Perfect, learning all about this computer world, software, everything else, then over into real estate investing? what are, 3 tips you could give, let's say somebody who's in college right now and or, hoping even if their dream about making the NBA shatters, what could you tell them right now that will help them, choose to what is it that you said earlier, seek a new profession?
Yeah. One of the things I would encourage that person that you just described is to build a network. Who are your friends in school? And are you reaching out to them? Is there any professional mentor that you would like to build a relationship with? I think, oftentimes we hear the old adage, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
And it's certainly important to have knowledge. That's critical. But boy, if you build relationships, it's been interesting for me to see the doors that have been opened over the years by different people. And I'd always like to be a lot smarter than I am, but I think I've been smart enough to develop a network of dear people who have been good to me,
Yeah.
who've helped me in different ways, who've opened doors, provided opportunities. So that's one thing I'd say. Be conscientious of the people around you, because they
Yes.
might be your business partner in a few years. The other thing
Yeah.
I would suggest is just the importance of discipline and managing your time well, and being the first to show up and the last to leave, but having the discipline and the focus to maximize your skill set and to provide the greatest benefit that you might be able to for those who you're working with or for. Uh,
Yes.
that I think that's critical. The third one I might mention is one of the values in my book, which is humility. I think
Mhm.
some of the mistakes that I've made along the way were simply due to a lack of humility.
Yeah.
And I've found when I recognize that I don't know it all, and I can make mistakes and take a more humble approach to things, I'm much more successful. So those are the three things that I would highlight this morning, Vicki.
I love that. I love that. I love that networking. Who's around you right now? And I love what you said about, your college friend may be your business partner later. I mean, that's really great. And mentoring. Mentoring, I think, is so important. And you want to pick mentors who are where you want to go. And then humility. I use it as, am I coachable? Am I listening to others' perspectives? And it's interesting because I love to learn. I just absolutely love it. I don't think I'm going to be one of those people who ever stops it. And part of that listening and having an egoless conversation with someone, it doesn't matter how young or old they are, you can always learn something from someone if you're willing to have a little humility. I love that you said that. And I think, we're so busy in college trying to prove ourselves that we forget humility. And I think that's a really strong basis. I want to talk about your book, The Values Delta, because to me, winning at anything in life and being able to sleep at night has a lot to do with values. And I am eager to get into what the values delta is and why it's applicable.
Well, thank you. I'll start with the title, the values delta. People might say, what's the definition of delta? And it really came about. My son was a finance graduate, and he used that term once. And I said, what does delta mean? He said, well, delta is simply the difference between two numbers. So if you take 10 and 17, the delta is 7. And so really it's the difference that our values can make in our lives. That's the values delta. And so in the book, some might call it a workbook, in that I ask you to do certain things. One is create a list of what your values are. take a minute and think, what, how would I almost describe myself? Maybe your value is optimism or kindness or
Yeah.
integrity. And then as you look at those values, then ask yourself a second question, which uses a different definition of the term value, which is, what do I value? And that might be, I value my job, or I value my relationship with my spouse, or with my close friend. And the third question is, how do your values impact the things that you value? If you just say maybe the value is cheerfulness, it's very simple that say, okay, how, if I'm more cheerful, or I focus on being cheerful, how will that impact my coworkers? How will that impact my relationship, say, with my children? And so the subtitle of the book is a small and simple way to make a positive impact in your personal, make a positive difference in your personal and professional life. So I'm not striving to change the world in grand ways, but I'm striving to help people, individuals, and companies to maybe make small improvements, to create a difference, a positive difference, a positive delta in relationships, or in the business world, or any circle that we're involved with that's important to us. That's what I'm striving for.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm just, oh gosh. Um, I, I want to ask you, if you're if you're not sure, like what your values delta is, or let's just say you don't like the values you're carrying right now. What, how can we reflect on, uh, how can we reflect on who we want to become? And if you're younger or older, because I think it doesn't matter, you can do this at any point in time, but how do we reflect on those? How do we know what we value or what we want to add into that, um, into the matrix of us?
Yeah, I like that. What I found is that I tend to study other people, and
Hmm.
to look for in others characteristics and traits that I would like to see in myself.
Yeah.
And I think we all have those people in our circles that we think, wow, I wish I was more disciplined like this person. And what are they
Yeah.
doing to develop that discipline? And how can I incorporate those things in my life? And again, that's part of the, in the book I outline a plan where you can just take one simple value, and let's go back to optimism. If I'm a business owner and I decide I'm going to focus on being more optimistic, and I want that to, I want my customers to feel that as I interact with them. Uh, I tell a story in the book about a business owner. He wears a badge and he says, "Business is great." So every day his customers see that badge, "Business is great." Well, business isn't always great, but it's still okay to be optimistic every day. And by so doing, the customers, they also get that message that, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to shop here because business is great here, and there's an optimistic owner here. And through just small and simple ways, that optimism is contagious, and it spreads. Now, by nature, I might not be the most optimistic person, but that doesn't mean I can't strive to change that, and hopefully achieve that small difference that we outline, that small delta, and benefit from that. And then it's a cyclical thing. Maybe the next month I would choose a different value that I feel
Yeah.
like is important to me, but maybe there's some room for improvement, and hopefully create some delta there.
God, I love that because, the difference in the improvement. Sometimes your values can switch immediately. Like, I know that when you get married, your values change and they get stronger in a certain area. And when you have children, man, that changes your delta right there. And then when you have, your business, I mean, there's so many things that you can apply to this. But I think there are some fundamentals that you spoke about. There's some fundamentals. Yes, right here that I really liked. It's the great approach to tackling the 56 values common to all humans. And to me, I think a lot of them, like you just said earlier, talking about humility, I really think that is part of the value system that I think is it gives you a sense of dignity actually and courtesy to other human beings. And part of getting successful at networking isn't just always about trying to get value from other people, but giving value right up front, that value there. And I think one of the most important things about success fully is that you understand what your values are, how they're applicable in the world, and what value you give to another person, and the delta between the value you give to another person and how that helps them. I think that's super important. And looking at it from this place, you can see where you want to tweak. I love that you said, well, I watch other people and I see what they have. And I'm like, oh, I would like to have that too. I remember doing that as a kid, as an adult, I still do it. So I call that for me learning by seeing somebody model it to you. Like when they model something to you and you're like, oh, that was a fantastic way to deal with that situation. And you learn so much by observing or witnessing something. And I think those kinds of practices over time, I don't think that I've ever there's no limit to that kind of learning values. There's no limit to improving yourself in that way. And the way I want to know is I want to go back to some discipline, because the way I see that modeling is you're so wanting what that person has that they modeled to you that you are more excited versus having to be disciplined about something that is it's that arduousness of discipline or this excited kind of discipline. And I want to talk a little bit about the two of those, because sometimes when people hear discipline, they're like, oh, it's hard, it's arduous. And sometimes when you hear you just got to get disciplined at it, people are like, I just have to tweak it a little more. And there's two sides to that kind of discipline. And I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about discipline in that way to everyone who's listening. And I want to let you know, just before he answers that question, you can grab a copy of Devin's book. If you're driving, and I know you're listening right now, relax. It's going to be in the show notes. The Values Delta book, Making a Positive Difference. This right here, it's going to be in the show notes. You can look down. We have it on the screen. I'll put it up on the screen. I'd prefer a different address. This one is really long, but it is on Amazon.com. So I'm wondering, Robin, if you could throw up another link for me that is shorter, but it's on Amazon.com. It'll be in the show notes. Drive safe, be safe. And now let's answer the discipline question. Thanks for waiting, Devin.
No, happy to. For me, the way I would outline that, Vicky, is oftentimes discipline certainly can be a negative thing because it's coming from someone else.
Yes.
Someone else is applying or inflicting the discipline. The discipline that I think makes a difference is the self-discipline. When I my first book was called Raising an All-American, and one of the chapters in there is be your own coach. So
Yeah.
rather than have the coach telling you, all right, you need to do this, that, and the other, no, it becomes something that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
You tell yourself things that a coach might tell you, or a parent might tell you, or someone in authority might tell you, but yet it's coming from myself. That's when it's certainly going to be tough and arduous, but but now it's more interesting and more enjoyable in a certain way because the discipline is coming from within, not without.
I love that. I love that you said that. The discipline is coming from within, not without. Yes. I know one time, I can't even remember what mentor it was that told me this, but he said, when you want the thing more than who you are in the moment, discipline becomes easy. Like if you want this goal more than you want your current experience, then the goal becomes easier. And I think it's completely enriching when we get to choose our values, when we get to choose who we want to become, and the power of holding your own concept of your own self, of who you are. Now, it doesn't matter how you were raised, it doesn't matter what happened to you. At some point, you get to choose who you want to become or what values you want to have, or, and it starts with, I remember it's as small as, I remember thinking when I grow up, I'm never going to be like that. So you have an idea of the thing you don't want to be. So you'll work towards the thing that you do want to be, even if it's the opposite of that. And, to me, when you are designing the concept of yourself, the first thing is, what are my values? What are the things I want to become and be and have, just as a natural state of me? So I want to be, I want to see opportunity. I want to be hardworking. And I don't mean hardworking a bajillion hours. I mean hardworking with some, ingenuity and having opportunities. And I want to be good at network. I want my relationships to be like this. These are all the values that you get to take a look at over a period of time. And in that moment, I think what is interesting about this concept that we're talking about, Devin, is that in the coaching thing, you get to coach yourself. That statement that you just made, it's like you get to shape who you are, which then is going to shape your destiny and shape your outcomes. And along the way, that tweaking it helps you have the kind of success and or the chutzpah when you don't have the success you want to go ahead and reimagine something different for yourself that makes you feel joy and success. And I love that you have empowered people to be their own coach. So, what would be 3 things that you really need to have to be your own coach? Because I know it's discipline, because I know, you want to lose 30 pounds and there's that cookie in front of you. You have to remove yourself away from the cookie. I know that piece of it. But what are some really good fundamentals in your life that got you all the success you've had, that you think, okay, outside of networking, outside of mentoring, outside of continuously learning, how do you coach yourself?
Um, Again, thank you for that question. For me, I think part of coaching yourself is what are you doing to gain knowledge?
Oh, yeah.
I, after I played basketball and had to move on, I found that I was very interested in real estate investment, and uh, but I didn't know anything about it. And I read a book that got me excited, but I realized that I was just lacking in knowledge. So I
Mm,
thought, how can I learn? How can I gain experience? How can I venture into this new field and and be successful? And so for me, I spent years, frankly, studying how to be successful as a real estate investor before I spent a penny. So I think that's certainly critical as we strive to discipline ourselves and find success,
yeah.
particularly on the entrepreneurial side, is finding that knowledge and at the same time learning from people who have already been successful. I try not to to reinvent the wheel, so to speak,
Yeah.
to learn from those people who are much wiser. And again, I've just been so fortunate with the mentors that I've had along the way. So those are two critical pieces of being your own coach. You know, Vicki, as we talk, I look over my shoulder and that there's a picture of my mother on my file
Mm,
cabinet. But the values that she instilled in me over time through her example, uh, it's uh, not a day goes by where I don't feel like her influence in one way or another has
yes.
blessed my life and helped me on this path of striving to discipline myself and educate myself and try to be the best version of myself. So much of it ties back to that dear woman.
Wow, you know, that's nice to hear. I really enjoyed hearing that because a lot of times, um, our points of view when we grow up and we're, learning from our parents, and sometimes we say to ourselves, "I don't wanna be like them," and sometimes "Oh, I want that piece of them. I want that part of them," or whatever. And when you have good examples of parents, you have really good examples that you're like, "Wow, this." There's so many, professional athletes that were raised by single women who did whatever needed to be done so that their sons or daughters could have opportunities that they could only imagine. And, right now we have the internet and things are easier to do, et cetera. And they weren't back then. They weren't when, my mother was younger. It's like you had to work two jobs if you wanted to make sure there was that opportunity, et cetera. And I think that I also feel super grateful. I mean, super grateful for the examples of ingenuity and making the best of what we had and, being able to level up even when things look totally against you. Uh, those kinds of those kinds of examples from your parents, those are the most priceless ones you can get because it's the tools you really need no matter. Are things easier now? Sure, they're easier in ways, and they're not in other ways. We never worried about gun violence when we were in college, in when I was in college back then. I never worried about it. And so I think for most people right now, some of the chutzpah that our parents and grandparents had are still going to be needed in the future. Some of those life skills of discipline and I mean discipline in a good way and sometimes in a healthy working way. Their work ethic is different and than it is now. And I think I want to ask, how much has gratitude, because when I've been talking to you, you've been so gracious. And all I see is a lot of gratitude inside you for those opportunities you've been handed and the ability to make something of them. And I wonder, have you always been that way, or was gratitude something you learned, or and how has it benefited you? I mean, obviously, but how has it benefited you from having it? And I don't see it as humility as much as I see it as gratitude. Do you understand my question?
Certainly, certainly, and you've touched on a tender topic for me. Gratitude is one of the priority values that I write about in my book, and it's been a theme throughout my life, really, because I have felt so fortunate. So
Mhm.
many good people who have led me and guided me, and I always give thanks to my God, my heavenly Father.
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer in a heavenly Father and
Mhm.
my elder brother Jesus Christ, and so I think I'm grateful for every breath that I get to breathe.
Yeah.
But there's so many things in life that we can be grateful for. I've talked about my mother and my father, and I was blessed with just wonderful siblings. So Vicky, the list goes on and on with me for the different things we can be grateful for. But at the same time, I recognize that life's not always easy and that things don't always work out. Uh, and there are there's some struggles, but I think in everyone, as we just take a minute to reflect, there's so much that all of us have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
So I better stop speaking about this topic because I could go on for hours.
I am with you on that. I'm with you on that. I think one of the most important, and I remember making this choice. It's a choice from me. I had a different background. My father was a little violent, and we had to leave, etc. We didn't have this great life growing up. And what ended up happening for me is I learned to think differently than other people. And I learned to think like the abuser thought and how they thought about life and how they saw things. And I have this distinct memory. I'm 16 years old. I got my driver's license. I have a new car and I have a part-time job. And I'm a bagger at a grocery store, and it was union wages with union benefits, which for me at 16 was outstanding. It was just really, really good. Now, my dad, every day when he got in the car to drive and he would get on the highway, he was certain that people were doing things to him on purpose. They were like, you did this, you cut me off on purpose, you did this on purpose. And he would curse and yell and flip the bird and scream. And he was just like waiting for today's bad driver. He thought, in a way, that people did things on purpose to harm him or hurt him. Now, without realizing it, when I was driving the car, I took on his thinking. And so one day I was driving and somebody cut me off. And I did the same exact thing. I screamed and I yelled and I cursed and I flipped him the bird. And then I stopped and said, "Hey, this isn't me." And from that moment on, I realized that I had learned habits that I didn't want to learn, that I had values that I didn't even understand. They just kind of infused themselves because I saw that action so much. And at that point, I was like, I am never going to be like that. I never wanted to be like that or think like that. And so in that first action of assessing what your values are, I valued what I wasn't going to be like, even though I didn't know quite who to become or what to say. But having that moment where there was a choice where we see that how we learn to think is super important. And the only way I knew of correcting that thinking, because it was so ingrained in my person, in my body, was gratitude. Because gratitude forces you to see the other side of the coin. So I could see from my father's way of learning, this is the horrible thing that happened to me today. And now I'm going to be, angry and bitter and whatever all day. I didn't want to be that person. I wasn't that person. I just learned how to think like that. So gratitude, what I say to myself every morning, I have this simple, simple, simple sentence. And it's good things are going to happen to me today. Good things are going to happen to me today. It forces my mind to find the good things that are happening that day and be grateful for them. And when stressful stuff comes up, I start looking for the good thing in that thing to happen. And I think one of the most healing things I've ever done in my whole life is practice gratitude. And now it's just part of who I am. I'm so grateful to be on this show and have this opportunity and to speak with you. That gratitude right there is another form of thinking, and you get to choose. I always tell everybody your thinking can only do two things. That's it. Only two. It'll either impair your abilities or empower your abilities, and that's it. And you get to choose. And this is the point of the values delta right there. Because if you're using thinking that impairs you, the delta of switching it to thinking that empowers you, That's where this is where success is. And this is where you're suppressing your own success. And I think this is such an important thing when you talk about gratitude. And I'm like you, I could talk about it for hours, because the power isn't just in acknowledging, the power isn't in just acknowledging that you have something to be grateful for. It's also acknowledging how you're looked out for, how, and I'm going to say God, or, is looking out for you specifically. And I always tell everybody, Devin, I don't know everything about God. I don't know. But I do know this. He spends a lot of time looking out for Vicky Helm. That's what I know. And that's, he spends a lot of time looking out for Vicky Helm. And I am super, super grateful for that. I love that you mentioned that. It's so important. Gratitude is like the number one thing that can transform unhealthy thinking to healthy thinking. You know?
Yeah, that's just beautiful, Vicky. I wish I could hire you as my publicist for this book with what you said about how gratitude makes a difference in our lives. That was well said, and also just how you outlined how you had someone in your life who modeled some things that were wrong, but you had the strength of character to recognize that and make changes and create that delta again. And that's really the spirit of my book, which is, you do have control, and in small and simple ways you can make a difference and overcome some things that maybe had been modeled to you that in your heart knew they weren't the right thing or the right way to act. And
I didn't want to be
you're
like
a
that.
wonderful model of
Yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. It's like wherever you are, whoever you are, if every morning you just made that simple change, first off, wherever you are, if you're looking at how to become a better you, how to have more success, you want to go get the book, The Values Delta. It's on Amazon, and you want to go ahead and have that. And I think we have The Values Delta. It's a small and simple way to make a positive difference in your personal and professional life. This is a positive difference in your personal and professional life. There are books that you can read, because I'm constantly reading books even now. A, I just love to read, but B, I love to learn. And every little gem that I can get from somebody else, I add to the satchel of gifts and talents that I can have. I love that. And it's so important. And wherever you are today, I'm going to challenge you. And I know my internet went a little wonky, everybody. It's okay. I'll be back. I'm a little pixelated right now, but I can still be here. It'll be up and running. We have a storm moving in. But everyone can start with some simple things that can help their values and their values delta. And if you just tuned in and you don't know what the values delta is, go get the book and read it. But where you're becoming more than you are, if you feel hopeless, if you feel depressed, if you even feel suicidal, I would challenge you today to say to yourself just once, good things are going to happen to me today, and repeat it over and over again. Good things are going to happen to me today. Good things are going to be happening to me today. Do me a favor and get to the point where you are exercising your concept of who you are and what you think is possible for you. This is the beauty of having the book, The Values Delta. You're challenging who you think you are and what's possible for you. And that's what success is about. I loved when he said, I was interested in real estate, but I didn't know anything about it. Now, here's the thing. When I heard that, I was like, how did you know you were interested in it if you didn't know anything about it? But you know how you get a little spark of divine in intervention that says, real estate, you're interested in it. And you're like, real estate, this looks, and then you went right out and you got some books and you educated yourself. You took that first move. If you want good things to happen to you today, you got to follow that inner voice, that inner guidance, that inner divine that is saying, whatever your name is, go left or right, go read this, go explore that, go follow that piece of your divine. And really, the values delta, the more you know what your values are and what you're valuable for, you can improve on those things that you want to become good at. You also can say, oh my gosh, I'm already good at this, and charge forward with it. This is the point. And you don't have to sit and do this alone. There are books and mentors and networks. He gave you all the things and tools today that you can have to literally explode your success, and in using humility in a kind way and doing all of this. Devin, I am so appreciative of the conversation we had today. I'm so appreciative of that. If people wanted to work with you, if they wanted to, you know, not only just buy your book, but what if they want to be coached by you or want to be part of you? Where would they go? What website can they get a hold of you at?
Please come to thevaluesdelta.com, and I'd
Will you
love
put
to
that up, Robin, please? Thevaluedeltas.com.
love to be helpful in any way that I can. I've been so blessed over the course of my lifetime, and I would love to reach back and help in any way I could with individuals or companies. Love to do that, and love to have the conversation about values and how they're influencing your life, and how they can impact everything that's meaningful and important to you in your life. So thank you, Vicki. It's been a delight spending time with you. You're a true professional, and wish you
Thank
much
you.
success.
Thank you. Robin, would you put thevaluesdelta.com up? You have .co right now. I want .com. And listen, if you're thinking about hiring him for your company to bring this values delta into your company, I would suggest doing it. And here's why. The culture of a company is what is going to make productivity better. And if you know how to make productivity better, or you had somebody that could help you make your productivity better, then I would say reach out to Devin Durrant. Devin has had so much success already, and he knows about the values delta so well that he can go ahead and help your team, your salespeople, everybody become more productive. You could have a better ROI, and you're getting to the point where it's the end of the year. Don't you want to start next year really hitting the ground running? And if you do, you want to go to thevaluesdelta.com, thevaluesdelta.com. It says .co here. It's .com. Thevaluesdelta.com, not co.com. And you can get a hold of him, and he can come into your company and do those trainings and coachings and things like that. Now, if you want to work with him one-on-one, go to thevaluesdelta.com and get a hold of him. I'd invite everyone to have more success in their life. Devin, thank you so much for being on the Coffee Break Show. It has been unbelievable. I've enjoyed the conversation more than you know. You really speak my language today. I love that. Thank you for being here.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, everybody. You know, every week on the Coffee Break Show, we bring you the best experts from around the world. And we will see you next week, where we're going to have another really awesome expert. We'll see you on the next Coffee Break Show. Bye, everybody.